It's Brad Nelson on the left. It's George Vasquez on the right. It's Death Shadow Aggro against Ban Eldrazi. Round number 1 here from Orlando, about to be underway.
Ban Eldrazi has sort of recently become the talk of the town in Modern. I think a very powerful deck, and I think well positioned for this matchup. Vasquez can get on the board very early on, play creatures that outsize Brad's, and that's one of the big advantages of Brad's deck is he has some of the best power and toughness for mana in the format. But if Vasquez gets off to a fast start, especially one backed up by Noble Hierarch, he actually can outsize Nelson early on in the game.
That's exactly where Vasquez did start. A Windswept Teeth searches up a Temple Garden. Vasquez does fall down to 17 from that exchange into a Noble Hierarch. Nelson will play a Mishra's Bauble. He's going to take a look at the top card of Vasquez's deck, get an idea of what he's going to draw. Obviously, that card's going to stay there, and Brad will draw at the beginning of the next upkeep, which will be George's. One of those delayed cantrip triggers from Ice Age.
Yeah, you need to, any time you're going to throw back to Ice Age, you need to get cantrips that trigger at the start of the next turn. That's fundamental design space.
That's right.
Also, you need cumulative upkeep, one of Magic's most beloved keywords.
I think we have different definitions of beloved.
Yeah. How do you enjoy having your hand squeezed by a vice rack? Do you like that experience? If so, we have the mechanic for you. In fact, we have several mechanics like that.
And Verdant Catacombs here from Nelson is going to search him up a Stomping Ground. Now, if you do remember that New Jersey Invitational, here's the thing about Brad's deck. Not going to play a lot of turns, but the turns that he does play are going to be difficult. They're going to be a little bit lengthy. So you're going to see him think quite a bit on his turn before what might look like a simple play of just playing Wild Mikado is a lot more complicated than that. He'll draw a card from that Mishra's Bauble trigger. We'll head back Vasquez's way.
Nelson wants to get low, but not too low. That's complicated under normal circumstances, but especially when you're playing against decks that play back against you, where there's a damage race that occurs, Nelson managing his life total is very, very complicated.
Noble Hierarch is going to allow Vasquez to cast an Ancient Stirring, so he'll take a look at the top 5 cards, going to try to find a colorless one among them, which is going to be pretty easy for his deck to do. Thought-Knot Seer, Flooded Strand, Eldrazi Temple, Cavern Souls within this Ancient Stirrings. Vasquez is going to consult his hand before deciding what card he wants to take, and he'll go with a Thought-Knot Seer. Something that he can likely cast as soon as next turn. It's a very powerful 4/4. Now, this is not Eldrazi Winter, thankfully. That was a different time and a different place, but this Eldrazi deck probably still the best one that's laying around.
Yes, still plenty good, still plenty competitive.
You see a Brushland, another copy of Noble Hierarch, and we're going to head back Nelson's way. He'll draw a card. Picked up a copy of Bloodstained Mire. Also has an Arid Mesa in hand that he's kind of shuffling back and forth between. The Mesa is the land he'll play. He's going to fall down to 16 now. I know you've got – actually, I have Brad's deck list in front of me. Excuse me. And when we were in New Jersey, no basics. You're not going to find any basics here again. So every land that he plays is going to deal him 3 in most instances. Sure, he can search for a Ravnica Shockland and have it enter the battlefield tapped. But most times we're going to see him just crack a fetch, take 2. And now here's a Gataxian Probe as he falls down to 12. Wants to see exactly what Vasquez is working with. Looks like an Elder Deep Fiend. Can we confirm?
2 copies.
Okay, so that's one of those in his hand, along with the Thought-Knot Seer he found from Ancient Stirrings, Cavern of Souls, and what might be the most important card there, the Path to Exile.
So this is a really bad hand for Nelson to see here. The Thought-Knot Seer is problematic enough insofar as it's a 4/4, and Nelson doesn't really outsize that kind of threat very easily. Brad's best route to winning the game once he's behind on the battlefield is the combo, to punk someone out with a mixture of Become Immense and Temur Battle Rage. Path to Exile makes that very hard to execute, and the Thought-Knot Seer is going to strip the best card out of Nelson's hand as well. So this is asking a lot for Nelson to play through.
And the tough thing here, I suppose, is that Brad knows everything that's coming. He's working with perfect information, so now the question is, how is he going to work his way through the situation? Well, Thoughtseize is a good place to start.
Yeah, Thoughtseize is great. If you can get the Thought-Knot Seer out of Vasquez's hand, things become a lot easier.
Well, here's the Path to Exile. That's going to take care of the Wild Mikado that got in for 3 points of damage. Now, Nelson, well, no search, no basics. And now, Thought-Knot Seer, I think, is the predictable choice. Elder Deep Fiend doesn't look particularly scary on this battlefield.
It's at least some turns away.
Yeah.
And Nelson can conceivably close out the game inside of 1 or 2 turns. So he might be able to end the game before Elder Deep Fiend becomes a consideration.
Now it's another copy of Wild Mikado. And will that complete Nelson's turn? It looks like it will. So let's head back over to George's way. Elder Deep Fiend, Cavern of Souls in hand, picked up a copy of Brushland, it appears. So now all of a sudden, you know, you remove the Path to Exile and the Thought-Knot Seer out of the equation. All of a sudden, Vasquez's hand doesn't look particularly good, and he's actually got a top deck.
He was leaning very heavily on that Thought-Knot Seer, both to get something sizable onto the battlefield and to break up Nelson's ability to combo out. Now Nelson knows the coast is clear. He can play everything in his hand that he wants to, and Vasquez is living off the top here. Needs to find a blocker or a removal spell very quickly.
Cavern of Souls is the land, assuming Eldrazi, but will confirm. And now here comes the wildest of Nakados. Confirmation complete on that Cavern of Souls, naming Eldrazi, so they'll be uncounterable moving forward. Doesn't really play much of a role in this particular matchup.
Just another colorless land, but there are spots you can get into against decks with counter spells where you have another colorless land alongside your Cavern, and then you can start doing some stuff.
Nelson will play Bloodstained Mire and simply pass the turn back, so not the most explosive of turns there for Brad Nelson as we head back over to George Vasquez. Remember, Elder Deep Fiend in hand, picked up a copy of Brushland last turn, didn't get a great look at what he drew this turn. Now, the one card that Nelson does know about, again, is that Elder Deep Fiend, in regards to cards that matter, but also the only card he actually knows. Now, the Deep Fiend, a little bit more popular in Standard. Only a couple copies in this Bant Eldrazi deck. I think it might start working its way into Modern a little bit, the 5/6 Flash. You see the emerge cost of 7, 5 blue. But in some instances, you can actually just pay the 8 in this deck.
Yeah, you can play full retail sometimes, and Vasquez is now one turn away from being able to emerge that out. Oh, no, excuse me, with the...
oh, yeah, he's got enough right now.
Excuse me, he can do this right now.
Yeah. Pay the 6 mana with the 2 Hierarchs and the 4 lands, and then sacrifice a creature, and all of a sudden, here is an emerge. And George says, you know what, I'm going to tap everything on your upkeep. You got 4 permanents, let's tap them all. Will Nelson make a move here? Remember, no basics to search for. And with Elder Deep Fiend in combination with Exalted, we're looking at actually a 6-power attacker.
Mm-hmm. Still one more turn from Nelson on the other side, by the way the table looks right now.
Not sure if you got a glimpse of that draw step. It's a copy of Temur Battle Rage. Maybe that's the PC's missing. Vasquez will draw a card for the turn. That's a good one there in Ancient Stirrings.
Big draw here. If you can find any of his big payoff cards here, that should be enough to stabilize this game.
So this is interesting. Well, there's a Reality Smasher. He's going to take that. Does he have the 5th mana? That's the question now. If he's got a land in his hand, he can play Smasher. He can attack for exactly enough. So it does not look as though he has an Eldrazi Temple. There is the 5th land. Actually, the 5th land was an Eldrazi Temple. Here's Reality Smasher, and that is going to do it. So George Vasquez is going to win game number 1 here over Brad Nelson. Bant Eldrazi. Kind of coming back there a little bit. I thought Vasquez might lose that one after that Path Exile and Thought-Knot Seer got stripped, but some tightly top decks, and that Elder Deep Fiend was actually able to be cast. He does win game 1.
Just a little bit too much time there. If Nelson even had some random lightning bolts or whatever to break up the Noble Hierarchs and set the Elder Deep Fiend back a few turns, he might have, if not won the race, and at least given himself some more draw steps, but there were a couple turns there where he was just attacking for 3 and saying go. Vasquez was able to make his land drops, and then Elder Deep Fiend and the Reality Smasher was enough to close the game out.
To the sideboards we're going to go. We will take a look at each, and we will start with Brad Nelson, as he'll be on the play. He's got 4 copies of Tarmogoyf, 2 Path to Exile, 2 Inquisition of Kozilek, 2 Faith Shield this weekend, along with some one-ofs and Hooting Mandrills, Dismember, Ancient Grudge, Pyroclasm, and a Stony Silence.
So the 2 copies of Path to Exile and the Dismember, I think, are no-brainers in this matchup. Nelson just needs to be able to interact with the creatures a little bit more effectively. The question that I have is what's going on with the 4 copies of Tarmogoyf? Nelson might be in the market for just more size on the battlefield and match up with some of Vasquez's bigger threats, and it does typically match up very well against Thought-Knot Seer, as Tarmogoyf is going to be at least a 4/5 a good percentage of the time. That said, it can still get outclassed, so I'm not sure if Brad's going to want to go to that, but I think the removal spells should definitely be coming in.
For George Vasquez, 2 Blessed Alliance, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Stubborn Denial, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Natural State, along with a World Breaker, a Warship, an Elspeth Sun's Champion, and the Gate, and a Grafdigger's Cage.
Love the 2 copies of Blessed Alliance in this matchup as a way to break up the combo and gain a little bit of life. The 1 copy of Worship is also, I think, great for this matchup. It's not like Nelson brings a lot of removal to the table, and I think he might. It's possible he is just locked by Worship alongside a large enough creature. I guess with Dismembers and Path to Exiles, he has some hope, but it's a lot to ask Nelson to kill every single creature that enters the battlefield for the remainder of the game.
Yeah, I want that one of Worship if I'm George Vasquez, that's for sure. That gives you an idea of what both players are working with here for game number 2. So they'll shuffle up and get ready for that second game. While they do that, we're going to talk about the StarCityGames.com, a weekly sale where you can get 25% off of all moderately played foils.
Yes, so if you're looking to, fill out your Modern deck, fill out your Commander deck, what have you, head over to StarCityGames.com, check out the sale. We have a new sale that goes live every Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so make sure to be checking back to the website once a week, check out what the sale is. You're looking for some, let's call it, promo Restoration Angels, Unhinged Lands, Wormcoil Engines, Textless Damnations, what have you, 25% off all moderately played foils until Monday, 11 o'clock Eastern Time.
Brad Nelson, a player we'll take a moment here to learn a little bit more about. I don't know if people are familiar with him.
I don't know. He's been flying under the radar. I feel like not a heavily publicized player. Wait, no, that's not right.
That's not true.
That's not
We're
right.
a little rusty. We haven't been in the booth for a little while. So, Brad, 30 years old, currently residing in Roanoke, Virginia, providing content for StarCityGames.com. Open top 8's 8, wins 1 a couple years ago in Baltimore. Invitational top 8's 3, most recently in New Jersey, with 1 invitational win a few years ago in Indianapolis. As a golfer, an avid StarCraft 2 fan, and he was our first ever StarCityGames.com Players Champion in 2014. Made the top 4 last year, and as we talked about a lot in New Jersey, he was calling the New Jersey Invitational his SCGPCQ.
Yes, he would like to get back to the Players' Championship. I don't know if he necessarily has the time and bandwidth to be grinding the tour as much as he has in the last couple of years, so he's looking at the Invitationals as his opportunity to spike it. Fell a little bit short in New Jersey, but Atlanta only a few months away.
Yeah, I was talking to Brad some, and he said, you know what, I've got the time here in Season 3. Not a lot of events in Season 3. He's in good position because of his invitational finish in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. Said, you know, I feel like I've got a good shot at qualifying again and wants to go back to that tournament. Enjoys playing in that tournament. So it's a lot of fun at the Star City Game Center at the end of the year, and I expect to see Nelson there at the end. But I think the Season 3 race, it's going to be competitive.
Yes.
We know that much.
He's a little bit behind right now, but there's a lot of tournaments left. He did himself a solid with his performance in New Jersey, as you mentioned.
Now we'll see how things do go this week, and obviously had to miss Richmond because of the World Championships. So an excusable miss there, but now he's here in Orlando. I think, again, we're going to see him quite a bit during Season 3 here of the SCG Tour. Expect to see him in Indianapolis 2 weeks away for the Kaladesh release, where I'll be very interested to see what he plays that weekend.
Week 1 of Standard.
Oof.
Big rotation coming.
Oh, yeah, I cannot wait.
Hope springs eternal.
It does. It does.
So exciting.
Nelson going to take a quick mulligan here. Does not like the hand that he has. Vasquez, well, we'll see if he's happy with his 7. And as he does take a look at his opening hand, let's talk Bantel Eldrazi a little bit here. Maybe, I don't like to throw this term around a lot because Modern's a pretty diverse, dynamic format, but, you know, this was the deck that Brian Braun used to, you know, win Worlds in the Modern portion of the tournament. Can we say this is the best deck, or maybe the deck to beat in Modern right now?
I don't like throwing out, you know, best deck to beat kind of stuff in a format where there's so many decks being played. And if you go and look at the World Championships, there was a lot of Obzon in the room. A lot of the best players in the world decided to play that deck, which is not something that I would be on my top 5 list necessarily going in. What I do like about Ban Eldrazi is it is not playing fair. It is a deck that can, you know, generate your occasional turn 4 kills and so forth, and plays with a lot of mana acceleration and feels kind of cheaty, but it's also interacting. It's not a deck that's just all in on one thread or broken up by one card. So you kind of get the best of both worlds of not playing fair Magic, but also being able to interact and being able to handle a little bit of resistance.
Power level's pretty high. As we saw in that last game, Elder Deep Fiend, Thought Knot Seer, Path to Exile, Noble Hierarch, Reality Smasher, those are all really powerful Magic cards. Nelson's going to start the game, by sacrificing Windswept Heath.
Every card in here that isn't an Eldrazi is a no-brainer, top-level constructed card. Noble Hierarchs, Ancient Stirrings, Paths, Dismembers, Birds of Paradise, what have you. And all the Eldrazi are distorted by the fact that you have your own Ancient Tomb.
Sacred Foundry here for Nelson is the land he'll search up. So he falls down to 17. And now it's a Steplings. 3 copies of that 1-mana creature in his deck. We're going to head back over to George Vasquez. Vasquez is going to start with just a Hallowed Fountain that enters the battlefield tap. Let's go back over to Nelson. Nelson will sacrifice a Verdant Catacombs. That'll be a trigger from his Steplings. Let's actually make it 2. So you can expect Vasquez to at least take 4 points of damage this turn. Potentially more. There's Overgrown Tomb. He's got red, white, black, and green mana. That's exactly what this deck is looking for. And now he'll cycle Street Wraith. Pay 2 to draw a card.
Now the big question is Nelson to have the Death Shadow? This is kind of the makings of a potential turn 3 kill if he has it.
Looks like he picked up a copy of Stony Silence, I believe. He does have one of those in his sideboard. Maybe a little surprised to see that in?
A little bit.
Wild Mikado and Lightning Bolt in hand right now for Nelson. But also has the ability to play Stony Silence here as well. This is a Wild Mikado. He'll simply pass a turn back with Lightning Bolt at the ready. So over to Vasquez, who just started with a Hallowed Fountain that entered the battlefield tap. Remember, he kept his 7. Nelson mulligan down to 6. But Vasquez is immediately under the gun here. It's a Cabinet Souls. Likely to name Eldrazi. And it is. Now I'll just pass the turn back. Okay, so Nelson immediately knows, okay, I've got to play around certain cards now.
Yes.
Path to Exile, I think, is the most obvious one. But you have to imagine Dismember's on the radar, and now he's actually going to get to find out what's going on here with the Gitaxian Probe.
I believe Blessed Alliance may have been among the cards.
And it actually is the Blessed Alliance. Okay, fair enough. So we take a look at the hand. Spellskite, Eldrazi Displacer, Reality Smasher, Blessed Alliance, Eldrazi Temple, an Island, and a Windswept Heath here for George Vasquez.
And Blessed Alliance is a great one to know about.
Yes.
For example, if, let's say Nelson doesn't make a land drop this turn, he may not have attack with the Step Links, because why bother? Now, if he doesn't make a land drop, he can still attack with the Step Links just to protect himself from Blessed Alliance on the Wild Mikado.
Nelson down to 10 now. Another Step Links in hand. Last turn could have fired off that Lightning Bolt if he wanted to, chose not to. On the flip side, George Vasquez could have played that Spellskite, but chose not to. But you can see Nelson's hand. You don't see any of the payoff cards just yet. You don't see Temur Battle Rage. You don't see Become Immense. Hand kind of floundering around right now. He'll attack with both creatures, making Blessed Alliance quite poor. Step Link's down. Good attack there by Brad, but the Gitaxian Probe providing information is the relevant part there.
Nelson may have made the same attack anyway, but it's always good to have the information.
Here's Death Shadow. There's a Step Links. Pass that turn back. Let's go over to George now. Remember, he's got an Eldrazi Temple in hand. He can start powering out some large threats if you'd like.
But Death Shadow is problematic here for Vasquez if he does not have a removal spell ready, as that's going to be larger than anything he can bring to the table. That's one of the big advantages that Nelson has in this matchup. He can get Death Shadow to be the biggest thing on the battlefield. Eldrazi is usually playing with the biggest stuff.
Yep. There is that Temple. And now here's a Spellskite. Now, do we know if he drew a Path to Exile? Not sure. But that's something that Brad has to play around. But also, he could just be leaving up that Hallowed Fountain to be able to pay for Spellskite, for redirection. Nelson will cast a Dismember. He'll pay a lot of life to do so, but that's exactly what his deck wants to be doing. So down to 6 he goes. Here come the beatdown. Doesn't have to attack with Step Links this time because he doesn't have to worry about Blessed Alliance.
Simian Spirit Guide is legal.
You are right.
This is a sloppy attack from Nelson. Sloppy.
He's going to deal a lot of damage here with the Death Shadow and Wild Mikado. Vasquez is going to fall down to 3. Nelson will pass the turn back, it appears.
Doesn't have to cast the bolt right now. He's still got a very good chance of killing Vasquez in combat next turn with 2 lethal creatures. No reason to play into a potential Spell Pierce or something and then allow Vasquez to untap and do something.
Also, you might want to conceal the fact that you have Lightning Bolt in your deck after sideboard.
Sure. Small consideration, but I think people too often there just cast the bolt, and Nelson's in no rush here. He can sit and wait a turn.
Concealing a little bit of information, because if you think about it realistically, Lightning Bolt against Mantel Eldrazi, well, how many targets does it have?
Well, you have Noble Hierarch. That's a big one. Matter Reshaper is another one.
Sort of.
It's still going to be blocking and trading if you're not killing it. So it's not awful, even though that exchange is often going to be good for Vasquez. But yeah, Lightning Bolt is a little bit on the sketchy side. It's a lot of 4 and 5 tons, and that's part of the charm of playing Ban Eldrazi is the threats in the deck are typically very good against Lightning Bolt.
So I like concealing that information. No reason to show the Lightning Bolt, and guess what? He didn't have to show it that game as there was a concession there from George Vasquez. We're all tied up here in round number 1. Brad Nelson, George Vasquez getting ready here for game number 3. So we'll take a look at the sideboards one more time. Vasquez going to be on the play here for game number 3. Do you think anything changes, for example, now that Nelson knows about Blessed Alliance, so you want to leave it in the deck?
I think it's still above rate here for the matchup. It's not like Nelson has all the threats in the world. It's not easy for him to play around an Edict there, especially if Vasquez is backing it up with other removal spells like Path to Exile and Dismember. The life gain's relevant in the matchup too. I can't imagine cutting the card. It is probably going to be better on the balance on the draw than on the play, with Vasquez being on the defensive a little bit, but even with Nelson knowing about it, I can't imagine it gets cut.
On Nelson's side, you do see the options there with the Tarmogoyf, the Pass, the Inquisition, Kozilek, and hey, even maybe those Faith Shields as well. Again, I'm a little surprised to see those in the deck. That's a card I don't think many people people are going to play around this weekend.
Probably not, no. I'm definitely on board with the Dismember and the 2 copies of Path to Exile. To me, the Tarmogoyf is the card I'm most interested in. If I'm in Brad's spot, it's right on the line of a card I would consider bringing in, and we didn't see it in game number 2. Doesn't mean it's not necessarily in the deck, though.
There are the options. Both players going to shuffle up here very quickly. So let's talk about our favorite promotion. A fun and friendly atmosphere at StarCityGames.com. Game night every week in September. We got this little fella here, the Bone Chewer Giant.
Right. You can head over to go.starcitygames.com/game night, find out more information about game night, and find the game night closest to you. Every month we generate new packets with new pins and tokens. We send them out to the stores that are signed up for game night. The stores can then distribute these tokens any day that they want. They can run game night any format, sanctioned, unsanctioned. Just get players on the store on a regular basis for some fun and friendly magic. Right now we're in September. Playing for Bone Chewer Giant. Head down the pipeline here to October. We have Hedge Hogahog.
Well done.
Yep. Do we have November?
We do.
We do. I have not. All right. I have not seen this one yet. And Mole Warden. That's pretty good. Yep. All right. I usually no-sell the tokens the first time around. I can get down with Mole Warden. Anyhow, go to StarCityGames.com/game night. Find the game night closest to you. Stores, if you want to get signed up for game night, head over to Star City Games and contact your Star City Games in-store play representative. Get signed up today.
Good old Mole Warden. A fun new addition. Now, again, I work in the home base, Star City Games in Roanoke, Virginia. I know what's coming down for December, but I think you're going to be especially pleased with February.
Okay, February. That's a long ways away.
I know. That's the point.
So we got our hippopotamus, which I agitated for unprofessionally for the better part of 2 years.
Yeah, you and me too.
But it wasn't capsizing a boat when we. So there is still an opportunity to run that back.
That's true. There's a lot of unexplored territory with the hippopotamus. And what we can do from sleeves, deck boxes, play mats, dice bags. We can have a real crazy hippopotamus here.
All sorts of player bundles.
That's right.
All sorts.
Looks like Nelson going to take a mulligan here. Not happy with the hand that he has found. We got a little bit over 600 players here in Orlando at the Orange County Convention Center, or as I like to call it, another state in the United States. This place is enormous.
It is.
It's very easy to get lost in this convention center.
This convention center has characteristics of one of Bowser's castles.
Is there any trapdoors or lava I don't know about?
Probably.
Okay.
We looked around. It is a labyrinth.
Not easy to get around. I don't envy the people who have to clean this thing, have to vacuum the floors. It's so big.
It is so big.
It's just enormous. Yeah, I suppose they'd be able to get around a little bit with carts or something.
Yeah, but that shows just how large this place is.
Yeah, you just can't walk it.
Right.
It's unacceptable. Nelson.
We could barely walk it.
That's true. Nelson going to scry to the bottom. Let's do what?
And we took a cab over here.
We did take a cab, yeah.
we could still barely walk it.
Yeah, we did. Ancient Stirrings going to bring Vasquez down to 19. It's off of Brushland. Top 5 Reality Smasher in there. A couple of colorless lands as well. The selection is Reality Smasher.
And that tells you a lot about the hand because there was an Eldrazi Temple in there as well. So if he's taking the Reality Smasher, it means he's already got the mana lined up.
Nelson going to draw a card. A little furrow of the brow there. Not sure how happy he was with that draw step. It was a copy of Become Immense. Sometimes happy to see the very powerful pump spell, sometimes not so happy.
Still gets my vote for a card most likely to be banned from Modern next.
Well, you know that Brad Nelson and Tom Ross are certainly trying to make it that way.
Not to say that I think it's above 50%. I think any bannings at this point are pretty unlikely, but if I had to bet on one, that's where my money would be. Were I the type of person inclined to wager on things.
Which you're not.
Which I'm not.
But
if I was, that's where I would put my money.
Again, we want to be clear that you're not.
No.
But if you were. Bloodstained Mire here from Nelson. It's going to come down to 17. As he's going to search for Godless Shrine, white and black mana online. And the creature will be old Steppy Lynx, Mirish's Bauble. He'll wait with it. Okay.
Okay.
Don't see that happen a lot.
It's possible he's playing around a discard spell and does not want to trigger the draw of the Bauble on Vasquez's turn.
Okay. Spellskite. Bauble is going to take a look at George's top of library, and now Nelson will draw from that. He'll draw Temur Battle Rage, draw for the turn. It's a Wild Mikado. Does he have land number 2? I don't know. It's an Inquisition of Kozilek. Looks like a Path to Exile Reality Smasher.
I believe Blessed Alliance is the other option there of the cards that Nelson can take.
I think you're right, along with the Breeding Pool and the Cavern of Souls. Yep, there goes the Path. Blessed Alliance still there. And the problem here for Nelson is I don't think he has land number 2.
Not only does he not have land number 2, but his hand is nothing but Become Immenses and Teamer Battle Rages against Spellskite and Blessed Alliance.
Yeah. Just going to pass the turn. But Vasquez will draw. I believe he picked up a copy of Cavern of Souls. Breeding Pool's going to the battlefield tapped. We're going to head back Nelson's way. He'll draw a card. Gataxian Probe. Take a look. Same old boring stuff. 2 Caverns, Reality Smasher, and a Blessed Alliance. Nelson knows what he's got to try to beat, but more importantly, he's got to draw lands. He's not drawn one just yet. All he can do is pass the turn back over to George. And now the 5/5 with haste is probably going to come down. You see Nelson's already at 15.
And Nelson's hand is a mess besides.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even like things get good for him if he draws land number 2.
He just gets to play them. Sort of.
Sort of. But his hand's still just not meant to play against Spellskite.
I mean, that's part of the reason we saw him bring in the Stony Silence. It looked a little bit weird in game number 2, as there's a Noble Hierarch. I'm a little surprised not to see the Reality Smasher here. And now Spellskite coming into the red zone.
Interesting, because you can't even really make the argument that he's playing around a removal spell because Spellskite has that covered.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised in this
instance. If
instance.
Nelson's got a Path or a Dismember or something, you just move it over.
I suppose the thought process might be that George is so far ahead in this game that he can play a little bit cautious, which is this turn play Reality Smasher with mana available, where he doesn't have to pay life to be able to redirect over to Spellskite. I think I would have preferred to see the Reality Smasher that turn and just try to get this game over with.
I would just snapped him off.
Yeah.
Just been getting in.
There's Cavern. There's Smasher. And now here are the beatdowns. This will be an attack for 6 with the Exalted trigger. Pass that turn back. Nelson will draw. It's a Street Wraith. He's going to fall down to 6. He'll draw. It's a Death Shadow. That plays here. Yeah, that plays.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's I don't know if it's going to necessarily save him from the spot here,
Well,
as he still has to play through Blessed Alliance on the way back.
well, he's just not attacking.
I don't know how well his deck blocks.
Well, Death Shadow is big.
Yeah, no, he can hold it. He can hold it back for a little while.
That's a 7/7.
But I think Vasquez has another Reality Smasher in hand, which complicates things quite a bit.
That makes things a little more difficult. But a 7/7 on D against Reality Smashers, which are only going to be 5/5s, no Exalted trigger. And even if he does get one, it would just be a 6/6. Now, he's taking a look at Blessed Alliance. We're going to do the same thing. We'll take a look at Blessed Alliance really quick here. Target player gains 4 life.
So he can send Nelson up to 10 here. He can target Brad.
Oh, that's great. Let's see if he sees this interaction. Yeah, he can have Brad actually gain life here with the Blessed Alliance. That's why I want to take a look. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah, he sends Brad up to 10.
Uh-huh.
And then the Death Shadow's a 3/3.
Yep. And then you trample over for some damage. Let's see, this is what it's like to play. Yeah, Brad's taking a look now, I think, at Blessed Alliance. Maybe a little bit more versatile of a card than we gave it credit for. In this
Well, I
matchup.
mean, Death Shadow does a lot of weirdness on both sides of the table, what the incentives are.
Yeah. So it says you gain 4 life. Brad, you go up to 10, which brings your Death Shadow down to a 3/3 against my 6/6 Trampling Reality Smasher. Assuming all of this happened the way that we think. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah,
I'm confused. Yeah, we'll have to know the mode and the targets now with old Blessed Alliance now, because I expected that Death Shadow to die. After blocks what? What mode? Which player? Sure, but the Death Shadow should be dead. That's the issue that we need to sort out. So they're sorting out exactly it was so attack, block, after blocks. I believe Blessed Alliance targeted Brad.
Oh,
okay.
Because it's state-based. Yeah,
State-based effects. Okay, never mind.
Never mind. Okay, yep.
Damage all resolves at once.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
and then he goes back up and then it's still around.
All right, so it doesn't work great. Got it. Never mind.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I'm not sure if a single thing happened. Well, I mean, Vasquez is down his Blessed Alliance, but
That's something that did happen. And then he played a Matter Reshaper and passed the turn back. That Shadow's complicated. Now Brad drew a land finally.
right. But now his life toll is becoming a consideration. Vasquez is in a spot now where he's going to be able to essentially go wide, I think, because the last card left in his hand is another copy of Reality Smasher. And Spellskite gives Vasquez a lot of protection from the lines of play that Nelson can possibly go to.
Yeah, it does. There's Blood Crypt. He's going to fall down to 5. And Death Shadow's even bigger now, but I'm not sure how Brad works his way. He needs green mana. If he had green mana, he'd be able to play Tarmogoyf for Wild Mikado. That's the biggest problem here.
Yep. His hand doesn't offer a whole lot right now. He still has his Lightning Bolts in hand, which he can now cast, but he's playing against Spellskite and creatures that are too large for it.
Yep. Step Links gets a trigger, but that doesn't matter a ton.
Yeah, 2 power doesn't get him very far here.
All right, pass the turn back over to Vasquez. After that complicated last turn from George, I think this one might be a little more straightforward. Yeah, there's Reality Smasher. That should probably do it. These creatures that can attack. He's going to play a Lightning Bolt. Nope, that's going to do it. George Vasquez is going to win this match here over Brad Nelson, 2-1. Bant Eldrazi, modern mainstay, throwing its weight around here over Death Shadow aggro, wins the match 2-1.
And I think this is a challenging matchup here for Nelson. A lot of the edge that he gets with this sort of deck is how fast it is and how much power you add to the battlefield. And Bant Eldrazi can hang around in that sort of game, and once the game slows down a little bit, he's just playing with, more conventional Magic cards, just playing with Shivan Dragons, and it's hard for Nelson to keep up in that sort of game.